The bracelet is warm from the fluorescent lights above counsel table. A little sun threaded onto my wrist, copper links pressed smooth by years of thumb rubbing. The kind of habit you pick up when waiting for the judge to enter and the ceiling vents. Huff a breath that smells like stale paper and copier toner. The courtroom benches creak when people shift. The mic at the stand gives a soft pop. Cameron watches me with the softened smirk he reserves for an audience, his tie an obedient navy. His eyes sweeping to the juror box, even though there's no jury today. He's not on trial. Neither am I, yet the room feels like a stage, and he's playing against the one prop that matters, my bracelet, because he knows what it means to me, and because degrading an object is safer than saying what he really did. Aisha, my attorney, nicks the edge of her legal pad with her thumbnail to tear off a tab. She leans close and murmurs, "Let him," her breath mixing eucalyptus and coffee. Then we stamp him with receipts. He starts with charm. He always starts there. "Your Honor," he says, turning toward the bench with his shoulders angled. Just enough to flash the profile that won him his two-bet commercial once upon a time. I only mention the bracelet because it concerns me. She clings to it like a child clings to a toy. It's performative grief. The words make a faint hiss in the wooden room. One of the older women on the back bench blinks at me, slow, as if tasting the word grief. The bailiff scratches something on a clipboard, and the soft rattle breaks the air. Kamran's lawyer, Nabil, nods like a metronome. Grief is a neat bow on a messy box. He says it to make me look unstable. To make this hearing about my ornament instead of the injunction we filed after his late-night ambush at my apartment door. After the threats that ricocheted off the peephole like coins down a well. The bracelet isn't grief. It's a record. Copper plates I hammered and stamped with dates and initials. One for every time I reversed one of his withdrawals, rescinded one of his fake authorizations, revoked a shared login, filed a complaint, served a notice. Each plate is a receipt. I angle my wrist just enough to catch Aisha's eye. She nods. She knows the language of quiet objects. The judge's clock ticks with a confident click. A little too loud for the size of the room, and I feel the cool from the duct above drift down my neck. Outside, in the marble hall, I know the vending machine hums and the security scanner belts its low beep. But in here, every sound is unwrapped and made larger. The crackle of a page. The flick of a coat. The nervous throat clear at row 2. One of my plates reads 10:07 wire reversed. Another reads 12:20 first images certified. The newest one, the thinnest, reads 3 days ago. 10/16 row drafted. Restraining order. Drafted and notarized, pending the judge's signature. The copper isn't fragile. Neither am I. He lifts his hands in that, "What do you want from me?" gesture he has used with waiters, with landlords, with my friends. When the bill appears or when a chair is pulled too close and he needs a new story. She wields it, he adds, like a talisman. The courtroom deserves facts, not theater. Aisha stands with the soft brush of fabric, her face set on prestige. "Come. Facts are what we brought." She replies, voice even. Facts with timestamps. Her stack is in order screenshots. Bank logs, reversal emails, witness affidavits. A recorded voicemail transcribed and certified. The partnership deed he fake waved to a vendor like a wand. The audit trail pulled from the shared drive before I revoked his credentials. She places the slim USB drive on the rail between counsel tables like a center chip in a card game. Exhibit B through L. Your Honor? The judge, silver hair combed to a smooth wave, presses 2 fingers to the bridge of her reading glasses. "We will proceed with the petitioner," she says. "Ms. Rahman, please continue." The room shifts its gaze. My tongue touches the back of my teeth. I stand. My palms don't sweat. They never do anymore when it's process. I let the bracelet hang. I describe on record the night of the door pounding. The way his voice pitched low to slip under the neighbor's radar. The way he slid the letter under my door and signed. Vague threats couched as requests to restore what is rightfully ours. I use the verbs that hold. I reversed the unauthorized transactions and notified the bank of the compromised access. I say, I filed notice with our property manager and recorded the incident with building security. I served a revocation of shared keys on the lease administrator. I executed a password audit of my accounts and documented the changes. Then I complied with my therapist's recommendation and called the precinct to place a complaint on file, which was timestamped, certified, and assigned an incident number. Kamran makes a sound like a snort that's been taught manners. Aisha stops writing and lets the silence note it. The steady AC breath wraps around the room. The bench, which smells like lemon oil and 2 decades of anxious palms. My bracelet warms again as if it has a pulse. I keep my words cut to the bone. Not a speech, process. When the clerk asks for the affidavit of neighbor testimony, I slide out Layla's statement from my folder, her cursive clean, describing how she'd watched his shadow flood the crack under my door, how she heard his line, "Open up." "Just want to talk," repeated in that sing-song men like him think is disarming. We filed the affidavit the morning after, notarized by the bank manager who had spent 6 months watching me unwind a shared account into clean lines. Kamran has to say something. He tilts his chin. She dramatizes everything, he says, and his laugh is gentle, pitying. He learned early, I think, the power of making a room believe the woman is already too much. The bracelet is an heirloom she assigned meaning to after the fact, because it makes her feel like a heroine. The judge's pen does not pause, but Aisha shifts, minuscule. That's the tell. A lie about the object, not what it does. The bracelet smells faintly like the beeswax I rubbed into the plates to keep the edges from catching cloth. I made it 3 years ago, long before the end, when I believed in us and in keeping receipts as a habit, not as armor. He was the one who called it the work bracelet, because I wore it like a method. I choose process over fury. The words leave me soft enough that the nearest bench hears and the furthest feels the air change. Cameron's mouth tightens. It's the first time I say it out loud in this room. The first time anyone but Aisha hears my line and sits up a little straighter. The judge lifts her eyes. The bailiff stops tapping his pen. I let the sentence live, and then I step back into function. "Exhibit D," I say. And Aisha hands the printout to the clerk. The bank log with the attempted transfer at 2:14. Reversed by 10:07 with the wire confirmation number redacted except for the last 4 digits on the record. I point to the reversal email that reads, "Your wire has been canceled per client request. Z. Rahman," and the reply from the bank. Timestamped, that acknowledges the security freeze I asked to remain in place for a week. We don't raise our voices. We cite. Near the door, the bailiff's radio chirps a tiny static whisper and falls quiet. The fluorescent tubes buzz just a hair louder, as if gathering thoughts. In my bag, the process server's envelope sits ready. Imran's neat, bold writing. Documents organized by tabs like polite teeth. The restraining order packet paper clipped to the service acknowledgement. Aisha had said, "We can serve directly after if the order is granted." And Imran had nodded, eyes steady. The same steady he'd used last year when he waited in a coffee shop for a man to sign for a corporate dissolution that freed a friend. He will be in the hall now pretending to read his phone, alert to the flow of people. I imagine the hum of the vending machine again, and my mouth goes dry for a moment. The water cup is cool and flimsy between my fingers. Plastic smells faintly like lemon cleaner and the bleach of a morning mop. Kamran leans forward and places his hand on his counsel's arm. Not a grab, but a stagecraft eyeline. "Your Honor," Nabel says, taking the cue, "may we note that Ms. Rahman previously wore the bracelet during business meetings as a strategy to project strength? We have a witness from her former firm who the judge cuts in with a mild lift of her hand. We are not litigating jewelry or its symbolism," she says. "We are reviewing the petition for a restraining order based on alleged harassment and financial misconduct, with supporting documentation." She shifts a file, and the documentation is plentiful. Facts land in this room with soft thuds. The recording of his voicemail, where he says, "Restore what you took," with that stretched pause before "took." The email where he sends a vendor a counterfeit partnership deed, immediately followed by my reversal. "Please disregard." No such partnership is executed. and the reply from the vendor acknowledging receipt and copying their compliance officer, who flagged it as a fraud attempt. We have the certified call log from my building security desk showing his name entered at 2203. Denied access at 2204, with reason. No authorization. List updated. We have the text he sent Layla by mistake, intended for me, where he wrote, "Tell her I'll be by anyway." She hates. Scenes which we printed and attached to Layla's affidavit. We have the bank manager's letter explaining the freezing and the little note at the bottom. Ms. Rahman's account shows no overdrafts or delinquencies. That one is for me. There was a time when I would have tried to fix him. There was a time I would have sat across from him at our small kitchen table, the glass catching morning light and scattering it like coins, and said, "You can't keep doing this," in the soft way we use when we think gentleness can counter a pattern. The table felt always cool. The kitchen smelled always like black tea and cumin, a thread of warmth. I used to believe language could rescue what discipline refused. And then he laughed at an invoice I had spent 2 hours crafting. "You and your tiny trophies," he said, flipping the pages like a deck. I watched the corners bend and unfold and knew, in a quiet that had no smoke in it, that I would one day become both witness and guard. Knowing doesn't make leaving easy. It makes staying impossible. We mapped the space of our relationship like a floor plan. He hated boundaries because they required him to acknowledge walls. I loved the way a room can be clarified by a quiet latch. He pressed on doors. I learned to record when they shut. The first red flag was not dramatic. It was a casual "babe, I used your card for the client drinks. I'll pay you back," which never broke into the shell of his wallet. The second was his insistence that the account should be shared for convenience, with him as second signatory for emergencies. The third was the late-night cold call he made to my mother after our first serious argument, telling her I was fragile. My mother told me the next morning on the balcony, the city air still cool and faintly metallic. "He calls me again," she said. "I will record him." The day was already bright, the railing warm under my palms. So I created the bracelet like an accountant's rosary. Each played a verb. Not loud, not heavy. A copperized method closing around my wrist each morning to remind me I had my own ledger. The day we had the audit clause introduced in his startup's contractor templates, because I insisted, I stamped audit right and joined. The afternoon I rescinded his access to my cloud drive. After I found the file called renegotiation scripts, I stamped credentials revoked. The evening I recorded him outside my building asking our concierge to just let me run up for 5 minutes. I stamped access denied 2152. He could have seen it as a warning. He saw it as a dare. And here we are, a courtroom that smells like paper and expectation. Ms. Rahman, the judge says, "You stated you prepared a draft restraining order with your attorney." Aisha nods, and I reply, "Yes," and I angle the folder. The copper plates press my skin. I ease my bracelet down to my wrist bone where it feels solid. "Is there anything else you would like to add before I review for temporary relief?" "There is," and I add it. The scene in the lobby when he told our concierge that if she didn't buzz my apartment, he'd bring friends. And the concierge notes, signed and dated, stating the threat. I speak about the night I found his car idling across from my building at 2 o'clock. The dash faintly lit, and how I walked to the precinct 2 blocks away and filed a supplemental incident report. We attached the officer's name, badge number, and the report's stamped copy. I described the call from the charity board I sit on, letting me know he had emailed them about my reliability the week we voted on grants. The subject line, "Quiet concern." The board chair's reply after my counsel intervened is in our exhibits. It's the part that reads, "We have disregarded the unverified email and adjusted our spam filters accordingly." A couple enters late, the door sighs, a little coil of cooler air slips in, and the smell of rain from outside on the stone pavers curls into the room and then dissolves. Cameron's shoe taps once against the wooden floor. He has a tell with his feet. The tap is for impatience, the heel rock for surprise. The tap means he thinks we are reaching the end and he is anxious for a scene he can then spin. He likes his stories to end with him pivoting on a single phrase. It was all miscommunication. Not today. The judge's pen stops. I'll take a short recess to review, she says, and will return with an order. She stands. The room rises, a soft thunder of wood and fabric. And the hum of the lights is suddenly louder because the human sounds have paused. The bailiff's radio whispers again. The door opens. The cool hall smell returns and slides over the varnish. We sit. Aisha's hand rests 2 inches from mine. A quiet presence. We're good, she says, a soft confidence, and checks her notes with a speed I've come to love. What you need to know about Aisha is that she solves with sequence. She does not talk louder. She neatens steps. When she took me on, she slid a sheet across the table with a list. Files to redacted, numbers to change, letters to draft. Her lipstick then was burgundy. Now it is a muted rose. The colors change. The method doesn't. She'd said, we will notarize the affidavits, record your complaint, and serve documents within 24 hours of the order. The practicality anchored me like a weight that sits in your cheek. The copiers behind the clerk's counter start up again, little engine noises filling the quiet, and someone opens a window in the corridor. The air changes temperature by 1 degree, and my skin notices. Across the aisle, Nabal whispers to Cameron, who nods with the faintest tilt of his head, that self-satisfied this won't stick nod. It rolls off me like kitchen steam. In my phone's note app, I have bullet points labeled post-order, including a schedule for escrow of the key fob. The building manager, Mr. Rowe, texted me at 6:48 this morning, standing by to void X's fob upon order receipt. I have a draft email to the charity board to inform them of the order. Not because they need it now, but because transparency beats rumor. Little moves, each one recorded, certified where possible, witnessed where necessary. Executed with the respect process deserves. I have the last plate I'll stamp today blank in my pocket. It is smooth and tiny. It will say, order served 10/19 if all goes as planned. I rub it like a worry stone and then put it back, because I refuse to worry in rooms designed for order. The judge returns with the same economy of motion she left with. Her robe whispers against the chair. Please be seated. We sit. She adjusts the pages before her and looks at me first, then at Cameron, then down at the words. I have reviewed the petition and supporting exhibits. The court finds that the petitioner has demonstrated by a preponderance of evidence that the respondent engaged in harassment and attempted financial misconduct. The temporary restraining order is granted. She reads the distances, the prohibitions, the parts about no contact, no proxy contact, no social media contact, no approaching my home, my workplace, the charity office. She reads the clause authorizing control of the shared lease interface to me for 30 days, which Mr. Rowe had asked for so he could process any necessary changes. She reads the schedule for a full hearing. She places the pen down like a gavel. Cameron inhales as if he's about to speak. Aisha raises one finger. Your Honor, motion to seal Exhibit H regarding bank log identifiers to protect the petitioner's security. The judge nods. Granted. It is a small motion. It tastes like victory anyway. The copper plates slide against each other, a soft clink. The order comes down the line from the bench to the clerk to me to Aisha for a countersignature. The clerk's ink smells like watery metal. The paper is warm from the machine. I sign, Aisha signs. The judge signs. The bailiff witnesses. For small acts, executed, notarized, recorded, served. When he stands too fast. The chair catches the hem of his jacket. Fabric scrapes. He rights himself and tries for the shrug that says, this is overkill. Nabil touches his arm. He shrugs off the touch in a micro flick and the judge sees it. Her face does not change, but the air tilts. Respondent, she says, I advise you to read the order carefully. Any violation will result in immediate consequences. He forces his mouth into a smile, one corner stubborn. Of course, Your Honor, he replies. The words coated in sugar so thick it almost hides the grain. Almost. We leave the courtroom. The corridor blooms with sound, echoing footsteps. The low laugh of someone who just won a parking appeal. The cough of an old man waiting on a bench. The vending machine thrums like a held note. Imran peels himself off the wall with a smile that crinkles the corners of his eyes. Aisha hands him the packet. He checks the tabs, the acknowledgement page, the return envelope already stamped for filing. "Where?" he asks, and Aisha's chin flicks in Kamran's direction. Kamran pretends to study a bulletin board about juror duty while Nabil searches his phone for something that will make this feel less like losing. Imran walks up with the courtesy of a waiter. "Sir," he says, documents tucked against his forearm. "For you." Cameron turns, delays by glancing at his watch, and reaches as if it is beneath him to be handed paper. Imran's pen clicks. "You are served," he says, steady as a stamp landing. The paper goes into Cameron's hand with the weight of consequence. He laughs. The barest laugh then flicks to the first page like he expects it to wink back. It doesn't. He skims. His jaw tightens one line, then eases, then tightens again. He flips further. The tabbing makes it easy, and somehow that irritates him more. Nabil leans in. "We'll appeal," he mutters, "because lawyers have to say something in hallways." Aisha steps into his eyeline and smiles without teeth. "We'll be ready," she says. "Everything here is time-stamped and certified." The corridor's chill rolls under my blouse like a gentle hand. I brush my bracelet once with my thumb. The copper is warm. He does not like to be watched while he processes loss. He prefers to perform for one person and then spin it to a crowd later. But there is a crowd now to teenagers waiting for traffic hearings. A woman with a stroller, a man in a suit with a red tie who keeps staring at the ceiling as if answers are written there. The smell of rain on stone threads through again. Kamran shifts his stance into disinterest, a move he uses when confronted with boundaries, but the paper remains. He hands the packet back to Imran, his old instinct to hand off responsibility kicking an end. Imran just smiles and taps the acknowledgement page. "Your signature here, sir," he says. Witnessed by me. I can feel the gentle attention of the corridor. I can feel my body deciding to unclench. "I won't sign," Kamran says light. As if this will erase the ink already on the order. As if refusing the second piece makes the first dissolve. "Signing is simply acknowledgement of receipt," Imran replies, tone friendly but built on granite. "Not agreement. If you prefer, I can note refusal and proceed." Kamran looks for an out and finds none. He takes the pen. The click echoes under the arch. The signature is messy. Imran labels our CVD 10/19, 1132 and folds the acknowledgement into his folder with a little pat like it's a well-fed pet. The smell of the pen ink is faintly chemical and familiar. The sound the pen makes is a scratch that feels like a sigh. We walk away. Aisha taps the order with her finger like a conductor clicking a baton against a chair. "Next steps," she says, being who she is. "We email Mr. Rowe and Mr. Siddiqui. We notify the charity board. We update your contact at the precinct with the order number. And we schedule the full hearing prep. I'll draft an advisory to your HR about the office protocol if he attempts contact there. We'll have security on a script." I nod because a plan is a bomb. We pass a display case of old courthouse photographs, faces pinned in time, the glass cooled with the air conditioning. On the third shelf, a tarnished brass nameplate from a judge's office reads, "Justice is a verb." I smile. That is my language. We step into the rain, the kind that doesn't drench but resets the heat. The city's smell turning clean and iron for a moment. The order goes into a clear plastic envelope. The envelope is a small ship in my arms as we push through people with umbrellas. A bus exhales in a rush. A child kicks a puddle and squeals. A woman argues on her phone about a deadline. The ordinary rushes back in. I call Mr. Rowe from under the overhang. The building lobby's camera catches me, and later I'll see my hair frizzed in a screenshot. When the management system logs the key fob change. "Order granted," I say when he picks up. "Send me a picture," he replies, and I text him the first page with the judge's signature. Received, he texts back 2 minutes later. Fob voided. Access revoked. Log recorded. Welcome home. The words are plain and perfect. Back at my apartment, the concierge, Fatima, reads the order like it is a bird that landed on her palm. You are fierce, she says quietly. The lobby has that citrus clean smell that makes you feel you're entering a fairer world. I slide the new building notice behind the desk glass, a simple black and white sheet with the word notice bolded, stating that Kamran is not to be permitted entry. Fatima adds the incident number in neat block letters. Cameras, I ask. Angles adjusted, she replies and smiles toward the ceiling. The feeds are being archived daily to a secure drive. She has her own version of a bracelet. It's a keychain with laminated mini cards, emergency contacts, building codes. A laminated line that reads, if threatened, call 911, then call manager. I ride the elevator, copper plate cool against the side of my wrist. The doors close on the lobby's brightness. The elevator's soft hum and the trickle of faint. Mechanical oil smell blend with the faint perfume from a neighbor who just left for work. The door opens to my floor and the hallway breathes a climate-controlled neutrality. In my apartment, I set the envelope on the table, the same table where he once laughed at my invoice. The wood is warm today, the light from the window catching dust motes like glitter suspended midair. I drop my keys into the bowl with that familiar ceramic chime. I pour water and drink half the glass in one extended pull. Then I pull out my small steel block and rubber mallet and lay out the blank copper plate. The act of stamping a date is not emotional. It is craft. I line the tiny number stamps with tweezers. I tap them with a mallet. Each tap is a note. OCT 1. 9. I add the words order served. I fill the letters with black jeweler's ink. Wipe off the excess, and the letters stand out like a small, firm voice. I punch a hole, thread a jump ring, and add the plate to the bracelet with the little click only I hear. Then I slip it back on my wrist and feel the new weight settle. The bracelet does not make me braver. It reminds me that bravery is a series of verbs. The days that follow are a ledger of gentle closures. Aisha's emails go out like swallows released from a box, each one purposeful. To HR, to the precinct, to the charity board. To Mr. Siddiqui at the bank with the order attached. Subject line: Protective order, account security protocol update. Mr. Siddiqui replies with a form letter and a personal line. Proud of your diligence, then notes that the fraud alert remains in place for the next 90 days, and that any attempt by Kamran to access my profile will be flagged and escalated. He had watched me months ago reverse transactions with the patience of a surgeon. Will indemnify you against any false claim he files with us. He adds, and the word indemnify settles like a brick in a wall I'm building. Layla brings soup over on the second evening, the kind that smells like ginger and garlic and a little heat. And we eat it on the couch while the rain flickers in and out like shy applause. She tells me that at the mailboxes, Kamran had once attempted small talk with her. Months back, the charm on. He said you were so sensitive, she recalls, rolling her eyes. And we share that tired laugh women share when we've both been given the same script by different male actors. She pats my bracelet. You wrote your own script, she says, and raises her spoon like a tiny cheer. The soup warms down to my stomach like a line of sun. On the third day, Imran drops the proof of service at Aisha's office and texts me a photo of the filed acknowledgement. The stamp dark and satisfying. Ready for any games, the caption reads. On the 4th, the charity board chair forwards me a quiet apology from a donor who had once been charmed by Kamran's network talk. I regret entertaining unverified claims. The note says, we have implemented a stricter policy for anonymous concerns. Policy updates are not dramatic. They are the adjustable wrenches that stop leaks. I file the email into a folder called Ripples and add a copper plate that afternoon donor policy revised because I have decided that recording wins will be my counterweight to recording harms. Kamran tries one small thing, as I knew he would. He posts a photo on his private account of a bracelet not mine, but similar, and captions it with a line about performative victims. It reaches a small audience. Someone screenshots and sends it to me. We catalog it and let it sit. Aisha advises, do not respond. Document only. So I screenshot export with timestamp visible and drag it into a secure folder. The act smells like clean digital air, faintly ozone. The cursor moves like a tiny swimmer. I rename the file with the date and add no contact public. Then I walk to the kitchen and slice an apple and eat it with peanut butter and listen to the kettle click just before it boils. Satisfying as a clap. In therapy, Dr. Nita asks what the bracelet feels like now. I press my thumb to it. Less like armor, I say, more like a book. She smiles. You're writing as you go. The room is warm, the couch solid, a diffuser puffs a scent like orange peel and something herbal. We do not talk about him much. We talk about me. We talk about fits in my life that feel like they can hold me. We plan the conversation with my mother about the order, so she doesn't worry and drive over with a bag of frozen parathas and a cricket bat. She can still bring parathas, Dr. Nita says, and we both laugh. Afterwards, in the waiting room, a woman with a baby smiles at me. And the baby stares at the light with that pure devotion we all had once. Light is a luxury. Process is how we keep it. A week later, the hearing date is confirmed. Preparation is a room I know how to live in. Aisha and I outline lines of attack, not with weapons, but with clarity. We order certified transcripts of the voicemail and of his call to the concierge. We request camera footage from the building with chain of custody documentation. Mr. Rowe signs the cover sheet with a flourish and his pen scuffs the paper in a way that sounds like a nod. We build a timeline with thick black lines, the font plain. The dates spaced like stepping stones a careful child would use to cross a stream. We underline the clause that matters in the partnership deed. He waived at the vendor no execution. Without dual wet signatures and witness countersignatures, and we attach the blank signature page. I pulled from his draft to show the fraud. We compile an index. Labels are our talismans. Cameron's attorney requests a continuance and then, once granted a few days, requests informal negotiations. Aisha declines politely and notes, "We are prepared to go to hearing." He sends a letter addressed to me with a line about mutual respect and meeting halfway. And we file it unopened in our case documents, because halfway between safety and harm is still harm. My response is my schedule. Exercise at dawn when the air in the park has that damp leaf smell. Work where my team knows the protocol and my manager has printed the order and placed it in a folder labeled Securities Air at the front desk. And dinner with my mother on Thursdays, where the apartment warms with the scent of cumin and ghee, and the bracelet clinks quietly against the rim of the serving spoon. The day before the hearing, he tries the apologia. Not to me, he cannot reach me, but to a mutual friend, Farhan, who texts me a screenshot out of just enough loyalty. He says he's sorry, Farhan writes, and that he just wants to talk in person. He says, "You're dramatic." I reply with a heart and thank you for sending. Please do not engage. If he pushes, tell him to have his counsel call Aisha. Farhan replies with a thumbs up and a proud of you. There are little brothers in the world who do not share your blood and who show up anyway. He is one. I add a plate that Nidalai stood firm because we must record Grace too. The second courtroom visit feels different. Less metallic, more human. Maybe I'm projecting. Maybe the lights are warmer. Maybe the sun is out and the building breathes differently. The benches sound the same. A clerk's voice is the same crispness. The judge is the same. Robe a little heavier because the air conditioning is bit higher. Cameron goes first this time because his side asked to speak to their motion. He does an earnest voice. He says he never intended harm. He says he worries about my obsessive tendencies and gestures. Of course, the half glance to my wrist. Her bracelet, he says, and the little ripple of amusement he hopes for does not arrive. It is like a badge of persecution. Aisha does not look at me. She doesn't need to. She stands and says respondent's language characterizes safety measures as pathology. The record shows repeated attempts to breach boundaries. We submit additional documents, updated. Bank logs a certified transcript of the voicemail, and a chain of custody affidavit for lobby footage. We also submit a letter from the charitable organization noting attempted interference in petitioner's governance role. Fax. Stamps, Inc. The judge reads. The judge asks one question, respondent. Do you dispute that you sent this quiet concern email? He says, I only meant. And she cuts, gentle, yes or no. He says, no. Consequence lands like rain on stones, soft, persistent, reshaping. I do speak because I am permitted a brief statement. I keep it clean. I name the nights by their dates. I say this order is not punishment, it is a guardrail. I have complied with every process and recorded every step. I touch the bracelet, heat of the room absorbed into the copper. I choose process over fury. I feel Aisha exhale a strand of air like a ribbon. Somewhere in the back, a pen drops and clicks once, a punctuation mark. The judge writes on the form, then looks up with the steadiness of someone who has watched many lives twist around paper. The court grants a 1-year restraining order with the terms outlined. Violations will be enforced. She adds fees. She adds a line about social media. She adds a line about no third-party messages. She signs, outside the buildings. Hallway light has a gold cast as if late midday has wrapped the walls. Imran appears as if conjured, and the formal order is served again, this time the long-term one. Cameron takes it, his smile gone rope-taut, and turns away without the performative remarks he craves. Nabil, thanks Aisha. It is a professional courtesy that means nothing and everything. Aisha and I step into the elevator together. So, the doors are mirrors. We are two women with tired eyes and clear faces. Is that line, she says, about guardrails? Keep that. I nod. The elevator hums, and I can smell someone's cologne, pine, and something sweet. The months widen with their own logistics. HR updates my file. Security at the office adds a note on the front desk screen for my name. If subject approaches, contact building management and call security. Do not engage. The charity board amends its bylaws to include a harassment clause. It passes without debate and with 3 people stopping me on the way out to say we saw what you carried. Mr. Siddiqui emails me a final note. When the 90 days end, all quiet. We will continue to monitor. File closed on our end. I add one more plate for that. Bank flag cleared 0117. The bracelet has become a narrative in metal. When? I run my fingers along it. It feels like Braille I wrote for myself. And then there are the quiet things. The things no order covers, but that the process changed in me. The neighbor's teenage son asks for help drafting a complaint to his school board about broken bathroom locks. I show him how to number points and attach photos and request a stamped receipt. We eat chips at the kitchen counter and he laughs when the stapler jams. He turns in the complaint. The locks are fixed 2 weeks later. His text, "We did it," arrives with a photo of a crowd of kids cheering at a closed door with a new bolt. I send him a thumbs up and add a Bluetooth one, because why not? The bracelet is not a shrine to harm. It is a register of fact-driven care. One afternoon in late spring, I run into Cameron on the opposite side of a busy street. It isn't a violation. Distances are respected. He is with a man I know vaguely from that old circle he floated in. A circle that loved rooftop drinks and vague startups with names like Plinth and Tonic. He sees me, tightens his mouth, and then unfolds it like a napkin. He makes no gesture. He doesn't need to. The light turns. The city smells like warm bread and exhaust. A bus size. A woman pulls a dog on a purple leash across the pavement. I look. I do not look away too fast or too slow. The bracelet slid cool under my sleeve because spring in this city can be fickle. He turns back to his companion. We cross. That is the right version of what happens after process has rebuilt a boundary. There is a final email weeks later from a vendor he once defrauded with a fake deed. It arrives out of nowhere and says, Your diligence forced us to overhaul our vendor verification. We're grateful. Signed with a name I do not know, Compliance Officer, and it includes a PDF of their new policy. I read it like a short story, procedures outlined, responsibilities specified, audit rights enshrined. My chest lifts with a satisfaction that feels almost like music. I forward it to Aisha with a heart. She replies with a gavel emoji and the word ripples. That night, in my kitchen, I stamp another plate and add it to the bracelet. The mallet taps are crisp. The copper sings. This story of mine did not climax with shouting. It unfolded like a ledger worked to balance. In the quiet after, I buy myself a small celebration, a secondhand turntable with a good needle. On Sundays, I clean the apartment with vinyl spinning, the smell of lemon cleaner and coffee mixing. The window cracked to let fresh air draft in. I wear the bracelet, and when it clinks against the table as I set down a glass, it sounds like punctuation. The city outside keeps being a city sirens, laughter, arguments, deliveries, music, board engines. I keep being me, work, cook, stretch, read, plan, love. And on certain mornings when the light falls just so and the copper warms and the room smells like toast, I repeat it to myself not as a war cry, but as a posture. I choose process over fury. If your boundaries are being tested and you want a clear plan, I can help you outline the exact steps, scripts, and receipts. Tell me your setting and allies, and I'll draft your dignified playbook now.